Joining us now, ladies and gentlemen, the greatest college football coach of all time. We just had DeBoer on. Rest in peace to DeBoer. Ladies and gentlemen, the GOAT, Nick Saban.
Yeah, Coach.
How we doing today, guys?
Coach, good to see you down there in Tuscaloosa, far from your home. Are you in your office currently? Is that where you are?
No, this used to be the staff room, and they kind of remodeled it to make it like a little bit of a recruiting holding room. But it's a very impressive room. I'm like, why didn't we do this?
Okay. All right, so let's talk about that. We just talked to Coach DeBoer, and he obviously chatted about a lot of the traditions and players and had massive respect for you. And we actually told him that we thought he was one of the only people that would be the perfect fit following in your shadow, in your footsteps. You have to be very confident in yourself. You got to be very humble. I think you got to love ball. He's all of those things. Plus, with the modern touch, was able to get Washington, obviously, to the national championship. How do you feel about what DeBoer's doing there? And is there any weirdness between you two at all?
None at all. He's done a fabulous job, in my opinion, of transitioning, because this is probably one of the most difficult things to, if you take over an unsuccessful program, everybody welcomes the change, everybody welcomes the new hope that is created by having a new coach. But when you take over a successful program, how are people going to respond to you? And how are you going to be accepted? And how is the changes you make going to be accepted? But, he's shown no ego and taken over. He and I have a really good relationship. And, the changes that he's made still put his sort of stamp on things. So I've been really impressed with him. I think maybe he's one of the few guys that could have done this as seamlessly as it's been for him and the players.
Yeah, because if it got sideways or ugly, it's an easy way to tell a story. Well, how could you ever follow the GOAT and all that? It's like, obviously, we're early in the season still, but seemingly team all in, state all in, you're all in, and DeBoer wins games. So congrats, Coach.
Yeah.
Shiz on handling the transition here. Go ahead, AJ.
Coach, what about tomorrow? What's going to happen on the field? When you watch these, obviously, you're very close to the Alabama team. You played the Georgia team many times. What do you think is going to happen tomorrow night? How do you think the atmosphere is? And I guess we all know we're in for a good game, but how do you think this thing plays out?
Well, I think it's going to be, a great game. That's why you come to places like this, or Georgia for that matter, because, it's an opportunity to play in games like this. Great competitors like to play against really good competition and sort of see how they can have success. I mean, if you're playing against somebody you're better than, you don't always get that same kind of self-gratification from what you're able to accomplish. So these are two really good teams. I don't think that neither team has really totally found their sea legs, especially on offense, to have the consistency. There's been a little inconsistency in both cases. And I think whoever can sort of do that tomorrow night probably is going to create a pretty significant advantage for themselves, and that'll probably start with how the quarterbacks play.
Yeah, and obviously both of them are no stranger to this rivalry. Excited to see who shows up, who doesn't show up. Speaking on that note, Ty has a question for you.
Yeah, Coach, at the start of the season when everyone was talking about the 12-team playoff, it was kind of Georgia, and then there's a big gap, and we'll kind of see who else fills in those spots. And then obviously after the close win at Kentucky, do you think that is the best thing that could have happened for Kirby? Because he can kind of reignite a fire underneath his guys' asses and kind of say, like, hey, maybe we're not as good as everyone thought we were. We can't just roll the ball out onto the field and just beat anyone who we play. Like, how have these last 2 weeks, you think, been for him addressing the team ahead of this game?
Well, I always said in the past, one of the worst things you could do as a team is play poorly and win. Because how are the players going to respond to that? But knowing Kirby, knowing Georgia, knowing the kind of success and expectations they have as a team, I would say winning that close game probably was a positive thing for them to be able to say, hey, we need to make some corrections here. We need to technically sort of improve at some of these areas, whether it's offensive line, defensive line, it's coverage, receiver, whatever it might be. And I think the players probably were very receptive to that, and the bye week was probably a very welcome time for them.
Love that both teams have a bye week. Yeah. No excuses. Mm-hmm. No excuses. Here we go. In September, Georgia-Bama. This is very abnormal, right?
very abnormal.
How do you feel about it?
Usually end of the season, usually December SEC championship game, playoff, whatever it might be. So, but I think this is a good thing. I think it's good to have, these kind of games all year long. I think the one thing about this game that, people are going to make this a huge game, which it is a really huge game. But at the same time, how do you respond to whatever the consequences of the game are? If you win, how do you move forward in terms of, because you're going to have some other tough games and some real challenges. And if you lose, how do you respond to that? Because you're going to have some really tough challenges down the road. So, and I think as hard as the SEC is, with however many teams are in the top 10, which are quite a few, you can lose a game or two and still have a chance to get in the playoffs. So I think it's how you react and respond to the consequences of a game like this that's going to be the key for both teams.
You talk about SEC football. I mean, Kentucky almost got a win over Georgia.
Yeah.
That's just Georgia, Kentucky there in middle of September, let alone it's a tough road down there in the South. It is a tough road down there in the South. This man, the go to the South, tomorrow is going to be, I can't wait to see.
Huge.
Well, that was the biggest difference I always felt in playing in the SEC versus other conferences was the depth of the league. How many good teams there were, which meant how many good games, tough games do you have to play? And I think there was one year we played 9 ranked teams, out of 12 games. So,
yeah, but there's some teams who have 3 ranked wins all year, and it's like this team's strength of schedule. Yeah. They got a lot of. You're like 9. Yeah, we got 10.
That's what I keep harping on with this whole selection committee is, at least in basketball, you get credit for winning whatever they call these significant games where, somebody's RPI rating is so high, you get more credit for that. I think we need to do something like that in football because schedules and depth of conference are not all the same everywhere, but in the SEC, it's pretty difficult.
Yeah, and the Big 12, obviously, West Virginia's gauntlet coming right out there. You know that, Coach. Let's stay in the SEC here. Connor's got a question for you.
Yeah, Coach. Also, speaking of the top 10, I believe like 4 or 5 of the head coaches in the top 10 poll right now have ties to you, so congrats to you on that. Pretty cool, no big deal. But for you, when it comes to, projecting things, obviously this is your first year on College Game Day, and one of the things you said was that Georgia and Texas would be in the SEC championship game, and you said that also to feed Alabama rat poison. So for you, is this the biggest win-win game of all time? Because if Georgia wins, your projection is right, and then if Georgia loses and Alabama wins, then your rat poison worked?
Yeah, I think you got it. You
Will you chat with?
I don't even think it requires an explanation.
Hey, will you chat with Kirby? Have you chatted with Kirby? How often do you keep in touch with him and other guys around college ball that you've coached with? Well, Coach.
I have a tremendous amount of respect for those guys and appreciation for the great job they did for us for so many years, and wish them well. In terms of their programs, how they build their programs, the success that they can have. And hopefully there was something that they learned here that is helpful to them. But at the same time, when you've been in Alabama for so long, it's not easy not to be a big time Roll Tide guy.
Well, that's why as soon as we heard you say that, as soon as we heard it was at SEC Media Days, I think, down there in Dallas or whatever. And as soon as we heard it, we were like, oh, he's still trying to coach the boys. You hear these assholes on TV, they're saying Georgia, Texas. Texas is going to come in. Like, Kalen DeBoer just runs that for the team. Jalen Milroe said, Coach Saban actually told us not to listen to any of the outside noise, so I'm not going to. It was a beautiful play by you, and it's awesome to watch. Now, let's talk about the current state of college football, and you're the right person to ask about because GOAT-ness. And you said, I forget what it was, breaking point was kind of the point, but you said the NIL thing is going to come to a head at some point, and there's going to have some situation, you had an exact title for it, exact word for it, I forget what it was, where it's all going to blow up, and then they're going to have to kind of fix it. Ty Schmidt has a question for you, Coach Saban.
Yeah, Coach, with everything going on at UNLV right now, is this kind of exactly is it all every coach's worst nightmare that something like this could happen when NIL first started? And is there any way we can kind of get this on track in the interim before there is some sort of governing body or anything like that? Because right as that happened, now we're seeing other guys at other schools who maybe aren't happy with their playing time saying, you know what, I'm going to take a redshirt year as well and then hit the portal and try to find playing time elsewhere. Like, is there any way we can kind of put like an emergency break on this thing before it gets too out of hand?
Well, I don't think there is until we sort of figure out what is the path to have a manageable system, in college football. Well, which I think is very possible. I don't really want anybody to think I don't want players to make money, but name, image, and likeness has kind of turned into pay for play. So if we're going to do that, why don't we just revenue share with the players? And they can still have name, image, and likeness, but it's got to be something that creates marketing value for some company or whatever, and they get paid for it, like it's Bryce Young doing a Dr. Pepper commercial or whatever. So, but the way we are right now, where everybody's a consistent free agent, you don't have any contract, you don't have any responsibility or obligation to your team. I don't know, like the player at UNLV that's opting out, what kind of value is he really creating for his future based on what he's doing? I don't know that he really is. And how does it affect, his teammates, and what's everybody else's and the country's team going to think of what he's doing? So there's so many consequences, and people don't really ever think about the 40% of the guys who get in the portal who lose their scholarship because they got in the portal and don't get an opportunity to go someplace else because they thought the grass was going to be greener on top of the septic tank, and it's not. So, anyway, there's a lot of consequences, out there. So of this kind of behavior and the culture that we've created, in college athletics. We're really not creating value for people's future. We're trying to see how much money we can make right now while we're going to college, and that's a huge shift, in the dynamic of development of college players.
Yeah, and guys, knowing that college payment is going to be the most money they're ever going to make playing football, maybe knowing they're not NFL guys, obviously it's a different situation, but once there is a managing pay-for-play situation with a revenue share with school, I think everybody's going to be relieved. I think everybody is going to be very relieved in it. I don't know if you saw with this UNLV situation, the most recent update is the president of Circa Sports out there in Derek Stevens out in Las Vegas, like $100,000. I'll give him $100,000. Is this what we need? $100,000 to keep this guy in Las Vegas? Which goes exactly to your point, and I think everybody else's point. Like, this can't just be how this goes now. This can't just be like, hey, because this is going to backfire immensely for somebody. And then also, how is there any comps? How do you know what is worth what? How do you know if your deal is good and not good? It's like the faster we get some sort of figure out thing, the better for all parties, I think. And I think you're echoing those same sentiments, right, Coach?
Yeah, no question about it. And I think the players need protection.
Yes.
I mean, like, you have the NFLPA that you can't even be an agent unless you can pass, certain muster to create value for players. Well, none of the players in college have any protection from anyone. Anybody can be an agent. Anybody can be that, third party on the street telling a guy what to do. So you don't even know if he's getting good information, bad information. So there's a lot of things that we could fix in college football, and I don't think it's that far away because it's such a great game, and there's so much interest and passion and enthusiasm that it's worth it. It's worth it to get it fixed.
Numbers going like this, college football. Coach, numbers going like this for college football. Storylines are massive. We got Georgia-Bama right now.
Come on.
I mean, that's a big deal. Other massive games happening around the country. Go ahead, Tone.
Yeah, Coach, the first month for Ohio State was 3 games against Group of 5 teams where they were 40-plus point favorites and a bye in there. And now they finally get to start the Big Ten play against Michigan State. Do you think Coach Day is ecstatic to get through that first month, without any major injuries, without anything bad happening, and finally kind of getting into Big Ten play and kind of figured out who his team is?
Yeah, I think you're probably absolutely right on that. He's probably used those first 3 games sort of as exhibition games to sort of learn about his team, find out who they are. But I think this is a very talented roster. I mean, they got really good receivers. They got 2 really good backs. The quarterback doesn't have to be great if he can just manage the game and not mess it up. They're really good on defense. I mean, it amazes me. Are they going to be able to continue to play split safety defense, which really only gives you 5.5 guys in the box, and be able to stop the run like they have in these first few games, which makes it more difficult to be able to pass the ball. So, this is a very talented team, but I think deep down inside, as a coach, you want to play a good opponent to try to figure out exactly where are we as a team. When we have to compete against somebody, well, how are we going to respond to that? How are we going to react to the adversity of it? But I'm very impressed with Ohio State's team.
Go ahead, AJ.
Coach, can you ever tell throughout the week when you were coaching? So sometimes I think there's carryover from, hey, we had a great week of practice and we go out there and we play a great game. Sometimes you feel like you have a terrible week and you go out there and dominate. Is there ever a time where you could hone in on that and you kind of had a beat on, hey, we're going to come out, we're either going to come out hot or we may come out a little bit flat?
Well, I think that the big thing that I look for as a coach, because what I was always trying to do is, get every player to try to play to his full potential. And I wanted guys in the program that had passion to try to, be perfectionist and close the gap on perfect, knowing that you could never get there. But so sometimes when you notice the mindset individually or collectively in the group that's not how we were going about business. That's not how we were preparing. That was a great indication to me that we're not going to play well in the game. And I always try to confront that the best I could and make players aware of that so that we didn't have those ups and downs. But, we won 19 games in a row here, twice. And we needed to lose. I mean, we got to the point where we weren't preparing the right way. There was too much complacency, which creates a blatant disregard for doing what's right. And then it starts showing up in your habits and your performance and your play, and you're destined and then to get beat. And then when you do get beat, everybody wants to, go to work on how do we right the ship. So, sometimes you recognize it, sometimes you can fix it, sometimes it's not fixable unless you get something that happens, a little thunderbolt that shakes everybody up a little bit.
Yeah, we need a perspective putter around here a little bit. Everybody's thinking shit's too sweet, and it's kind of a runaway. We're getting rewarded with it. We need a loss to kind of fix some things up, which brings me to Colorado. Coach Prime started practice over the other day, okay? From the top, he said, you guys acting like we dominated that game. We snuck by that game. They are now 14-point underdogs down in Orlando against UCF. And we started telling stories around here. A.Q. Shipley was here. He played for Joe Paterno. Darius Butler was here talking about his time up at UConn. I was talking about with Rich Rod. I assume A.J. Hawk has similar situations at Ohio State for the coach, for Tresson, and anybody else he played for. I don't think I know the entire.
Just Coach Tressel.
Okay, Coach Tressel. Starting practice over, such a hilarious move by you coaches. And A.Q. Shipley learned later, whenever he became a coach, that those were sometimes premeditated, where coach is like, I need one thing to happen, and I'm starting this thing over. Everybody needs a nice little, from the top. Rich Rod, awesome. Mic'd up for ESPN for a Thursday night football game for the first 4 periods. We're talking shit to Rich Rod, like, oh, hey, you look good today, coach. He's like, yeah, guys, this is a good day to get better. Just was not Rich Rod at all. Like, we could feel it. We could sense it. Then he takes that microphone off. Obviously, ESPN leaves out through the tunnel after, let's say, period 6 or 7 or whatever, walking out there. He literally Stone Cold Steve Austin back. Oh, you think that's hit the horn from the – I had to kick again. We're an hour past field goal. I'm back kicking. We're doing the restart of this whole thing. Were you a big start practice over, Coach? How many times did you utilize it? And Coach Prime doing that, what does that tell you about how Colorado probably responds this week?
Well, what I used to do is not start practice over, but I would start the period over.
Got it.
Like we're going good on good team run or whatever. And, one side of the ball was just not responding, or the offense was getting stuffed, or the defense was getting gashed. And, I'd let them run, 8, 10, 12 plays. And I'd just say, this is not what we need, and start the period over. And that usually got their attention.
Yeah.
Because they knew that we'd start the next period over. But I was always afraid to start practice over, like practice would be too long or something. But it's the same concept. You're trying to change the mindset of how everybody's approaching preparation for the game. And it's the same thing I said before, Coach Prime situation. play poorly and win. That is like the kiss of death, because guys don't always want to respond. They look at you like, hey, coach, we won the game. Why are you all upset making us practice and all that? Where if you lose, they're saying, when are we going to practice? Not why are we practicing? So there's a big difference in mindset. But the really great competitors, they always keep that same mindset. They always, because they want to be the best that they can be. So it's not about just winning and losing. It's about how good can I be.
Man, Coach, listening to you talk's awesome, dude. We're very lucky you retired, and they turned that room into the recruiting holding room, and you're a part of game day. You make us all much smarter, legitimately. And you seemingly understand everything happening around College World because you were literally just in it. And also you were in it, 75 years ago, too.
Yeah, sure.
It's good. You could kind of blend the two, Coach?
Not quite.
Yeah. You look good. You look great. You should see how fit he is, too.
Looks
Jock strapping.
Dude, he walks.
Tell on camera.
Yeah, you're in.
properly jocked.
Eats, too. He's not scared of like he's eating shit, too.
Yeah, from you, yeah.
Steaks,
some sweets. He'll have a sweet every once in a while. This guy's a modern marvel, this guy.
One comment about that, I remember saying something out in Oklahoma about they don't make them like they used to you. And I said, will you be able to do this when you're 72? And you said, there's no way I'm getting to 72.
That's an accurate sentiment. You see, that's self-awareness there. And him hitting the ball, 72, and then Saban, you're a beast, dude. Now, let's talk about that Oklahoma-Tennessee game from last week, actually. Big moment. Connor has a question for you.
Yeah, Coach, after the game, Tennessee released a nice little video, and it was really cool seeing Coach Heupel talk to his team, and he actually mentioned about how, this week wasn't about him coming back to Oklahoma, and he got real emotional, but he said, he thanked his team for bringing a little extra for him. Were there any situations for you, whether when you were at Bama playing LSU or anywhere else, where, you went back and played a team that you coached for and your guys were kind of a little more revved up for it? And also, what do you think about that Tennessee team? Because, we talked about it Monday. There was a lot of talk about the offense all weekend, and then, the defense is kind of shine for both of those teams.
Yeah, well, I do think that when we went back to play LSU the first time when I was here, I think it was the second year we were here, I was really concerned about the reception that I would get, which was pretty difficult, and how it would affect our team, because I know the passion that the people have at LSU, and I respect that and loved it when I was there and think it's great for college football, but I knew it was going to be pretty harsh, and I didn't want it to affect our team in a negative way. So that's probably the biggest one. But to your point about the defense, I think Tennessee's defense is probably one of the most underrated units, in college football, because we talk about the offense, talk about Nico, we talk about all that stuff, but it's fastball. But their defense is the real deal, and they played really well in the last game. And I think the good thing about having defense is, people say it all the time, defense travels. Even when you play on the road, you can play good on defense. It might affect the offense, but the defense will always play well. And I think Tennessee's defense was outstanding. I think Oklahoma's defense is outstanding. I just think that, Tennessee has a little more balance because they have a pretty good offensive team as well.
Coach Heupel afterwards told Nico Iamaleava in the moment on the field, he was like, hey, at the end we had to pull back a little bit because how good our defense was playing. Like, that was a decision made in real time by Heupel, who runs this hurry up, let's do this. And then he realizes what his defense is doing. He's like, hold the phone. It feels like we're in a good spot there on our second quarterback. Yeah. Our defense is doing well. This would be a huge win in this moment. And let's get it. Heupel's a good ball coach, man. Yeah. He's good. But that emotional moment was cool afterwards, too.
Yeah, I think he's a great coach. And I think it was smart for him to slow it down and try to shrink the game. You're playing on the road. You don't want to lose the momentum of the game. You keep going fast. You're going to play more plays on defense and give them more opportunities on offense. So I thought he did a really good job of managing that situation, playing on the road. First, game on the road for a young quarterback. I thought he did a fantastic job.
I love that at night when he laid his head down, though. There was a...
Oh, yeah.
That's what I fucking know.
Yeah, just like a mother...
Yeah, there was. And I love that. You got to have that, by the way, at the highest level. Can't wait to see you, Coach. Enjoy this weekend, man. It's going to be awesome to watch that place say thank you to you yet again on national television. It's really cool. It's going to be cool to see.
Forward to it. going to be exciting. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the GOAT, Nick Saban. Thank you, buddy. He's man.
Yeah, legend.
He'll start just going. You know, he just try.
So
they think the grass is going to be greener on top of the septic tank.
Yeah, that was awesome.
He's so good at it.
So that's good.
So good.
On game day, he's phenomenal.
Unbelievable.